Dear friends, welcome to THALIR. It means bud. It is budding force to a new life. And we are Capuchins working for the renewal of the society and the church. My dear friends, welcome to the international program for the midlifers. This program is being held from 3rd to 7th of November, every day in the evening, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Indian time. We are focusing on growing gracefully and midlife transition. This is offered by THALIR Capuchin Online Ministries. This is from Virtual Institute of Spirituality, Integration and Transformation. Visit. We are struggling with the discontentment with life and boredom with things and people. We start questioning the meaning of life. We are confused about who we are and where our life is going. We are facing boredom, exhaustion, self-questioning, daydreaming. We have come across irritability, unexpected anger. We are sometimes act on alcohol, drug, food and other compulsions. Sometimes we are also greatly decreased or increased in sexual desires and other concerns. We are also decreased and increased by ambitions in life. Therefore, to answer to these situations, we are happy to have amidst us Reverend Dr.Staney, CSSR, the Redemptorist priest. On the first day, we will be dealing with midlife crisis versus midlife transition. We'll follow with physical transition, emotional transition, spiritual rebirth, and relational transitions. We welcome you to have a wonderful interaction, input, and clarifications. Here comes Reverend Father Dr. Staney, CSSR.
About boundaries, we will be talking about boundaries today. Okay, friends, it's really fascinating when you talk about boundaries, because we understand, once we know how to handle this, then we see that most of our issues are revolving around that. Okay, so here we go. Now I have put this as yes, no, maybe, setting personal boundaries. Now friends, our life revolves around these three words. Yes and a no are more definitive. They are very clear cut. But maybe is somewhere in between, and I think most of us are caught up in that maybe. And that is what is causing a lot of emotional pain for us, because we are finding it difficult to say yes or no definitively, because we feel that we might lose something, the consequence. So that is why it is vital for us to understand our own boundaries. Boundaries for everyday life. Okay, so now look at this. Good fences make good neighbors. That's what Robert Frost said. So boundaries are everywhere. GPS, there's boundaries. There's something called geographic boundaries. We also have something on a sports field, on a football field, on a baseball field, on a cricket field. We have a boundary. That means that is the edges of it. But there are also other boundaries that can happen within our society. Say, for example, traffic, laws, communities, dress code, and the behavior pattern, natural, all that can be boundaries. They're all there. Having healthy personal boundaries is a lifestyle and it's not a quick fix. Okay? Having a healthy personal boundary is a lifestyle and not a quick fix. So it's important for us to understand where to draw the line. What is a healthy, flourishing boundary is beneficial for not only me, it's also about the other. It helps me, it helps the other. So therefore, we know what to do, we also know what not to do. So therefore, the emotions are minimized. And we don't get into negativity, we don't get into depressions, we don't get into self-talk, but rather we become more proactive. Okay. Now, let's put a definition to it. Personal boundaries are actually a simple a boundary is a limit or a space between you and the other person. That's all. It's as simple as that. It is a space between me and you. That's what I simply put it as, where I end and you begin. A clear place where you begin and the other person ends. Okay? Think of it as a fence in your backyard. You are the gatekeeper and get to decide who you let in and who you keep out, who you let into the whole backyard or who you let just inside the gate. That means you decide how much, you decide whom to let in because you're the gatekeeper. So for which we need to have a fence, and that is what we're talking about. Boundaries actually defines us. Now yesterday we were talking about during this time of midlife transition, we come to a state of confusion wherein I'm trying to ask, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my work? I don't understand why I keep doing this again and again and again. What am I afraid of? Am I trying to live my past life and continue it in my current life? Just because my family told me, just because my society tells me, or just because my congregation or my community tells me. And I also am confused, is this what I want to do? And I'm feeling I can't do, I'm powerless to do. So therefore, I find myself being vulnerable. And that is when we need a boundary. Where to draw the line? Where can I draw the line between me and my family? Where can I draw the line between me and my society? Where can I draw the line between me and my congregation, me and my community, me and my friend, me and the other person whom I don't like? And that is what boundaries defines me. It gives you clarity. Now, what is it? It is a personal space. Unfortunately, we cannot see it, but we can sense it. We can't see it, but we can sense it. It's almost like when some people come very close to you, you feel butterflies flying in your stomach. Yeah, that is what we're talking about. We all have certain distance. When some people come too close, you feel uncomfortable. But some people can come very close. But an unknown person coming close, you feel uncomfortable. And that is what we do. Boundaries are felt. So we try to identify, boundaries help us to identify what is our own responsibility, and it gives us control over our own lives. That is the fascinating part of personal boundaries. Because it gives me control over my life. Because it's my life, I would like to reclaim my life because I have given charge to somebody else to control my life all along. But now I'm trying to reclaim that and have controls with me. So it gives me control over my own life. There are different kinds of boundaries. So we're talking about a physical boundary that is about the personal space, touch. The touch is a physical space. Okay. So when you shake hands, there is a distance between two people. You shake hands to an unknown person. In a business conversation, you shake hands, but still there is a distance. That's a physical space. But you give a hug to your community member on a feast day. There, the relationship is little more than an unknown person. So every person has different spaces. And who gives that space? I decide what space people should come in. Some has to be far away, some can come closer, some can come intimate. And I decide. Okay? There could be mental boundaries. That means thought process. We're all different people. What your thoughts are not my thoughts. That's what the Bible says, right? Your thoughts are not my thoughts because we are two different people. So our thoughts and opinions can vary depending on our own upbringing, our own temperamental values, or it could also mean our own experiences. What I believe you might totally disagree. Now, most of our relational issues come through mental issues. Okay, let's take an example of our community meetings. You're having a kind of a project coming up, maybe in 1 month's time, and the superior calls for a community meeting, and we are all there, and we are brainstorming what can we do as this community, as a contribution of our community. Now, everybody gives their own opinions, but there will always be somebody in the community. Always. They will say, that's a stupid idea. And immediately we'll have World War III. This invariably happens. There'll be somebody to put us down about an idea, and there's somebody who gets hurt all the time it happens. Not only community meetings, I'm just giving you an example of a community meeting. It can happen in any social encounter. There'll be somebody who's always wanted to be dominating. There will be always somebody who wanted to play the subject. And the relation between the two is a superior and the inferior relationship. Therefore, there's a whole lot of mental constraints. But can I really draw the line and say, this is what I think, what you think about it is not my care? Now, that calls for a boundary. A psychological boundary is emotions and self-esteem. So sometimes we talk about two things. We talk about sympathy and empathy. There are two things called sympathy and empathy. What is the difference between the two? Now, when my friend is crying, I feel sad. That's called sympathy. Because my relationship with my friend is closer, we are emotionally closer, and I had shared a lot of my personal things to my friend. My friend has shared a lot of personal things to me. Therefore, that has brought us even more closer in understanding. Therefore, when my friend goes through pain, I go through pain. It affects me. And that is called sympathy. And what is empathy? Empathy is like it's like you understand somebody is in pain, but you are not affected. That means you understand somebody's in pain, you acknowledge somebody's pain, but you're not affected. You're not crying. But then only then you'll be able to console that person. Okay, so I'll give you a story. You might understand empathy better. There was this particular gentleman, an old person, traveling on a bus. And there he noticed there was another person with his two children traveling along. And these two children were running around in the bus, disturbing all the fellow passengers. The co-passengers were all angry, not with the children, but about the father, with the father, because the father was refusing, or he didn't even he didn't even think about controlling his children. He was totally lost in his thoughts. So therefore, this old gentleman walks up to this man and says, "Excuse me, sir, can't you see your children are running around and disturbing all of us here? Can you control them, please?" Now, this gentleman, just coming to his senses, he says, "I'm so sorry, I was lost in my thoughts. We are coming from the hospital. Their mother just passed away. We are going home to prepare for the funeral." Now, friends, do you think anybody who's traveling in that bus will be angry with those children? Definitely not. Why? The way that they looked at these children has changed. That's called empathy. That means I understand you're going in pain. I acknowledge your pain, but I feel sorry, but I'm not affected. My life will go on. So therefore, I can empathize, I can console you. That's called a psychological boundary. So where you need to draw a line. There is also a social distance, there is a spiritual distance, and there is also something called the gender boundary, which we will see. Okay. Now, benefits of maintaining a boundary. It improves a sense of security, stability, predictability, and it creates order. Therefore, I have a timetable of my own. Of course, I have a general timetable I follow, but still, I also have a personal timetable within the timetable, which actually helps me to see where I am going. So that is the benefit of maintaining a very strong boundary. A boundary can create also a non-judgmental atmosphere. a non-judgmental atmosphere. Therefore, I can understand another person's pain. I can say, yeah, because of something, the person is going through anxiety. Because of any some other reason, the person is getting annoyed. The person is getting irritated. I can stay away. I can understand the other person non-judgmentally. That is what is another benefit of setting a boundary. Now, setting a boundary also connects us. It connects me. So that is something that is very valuable. So friends, we will try to understand boundaries. Now, what will happen if you don't have a boundary? All these will happen. I will lose my identity basically. I will not know where I end and where you begin. I will merge into you and you will merge into me. It'll be really funny, isn't it? Friends, you will be surprised. There are people who find it difficult to know what is their favorite ice cream. It's true. People find it very difficult even to know what is their favorite flavor when they go to an ice cream parlor. I'll give you an example. I was a formator, I told you, and it was pre-novices. They were all young guys. They were about, say, 16, between 16 and 18 years of age. I used to take them to an ice cream parlor on a Sunday. So I used to tell them, okay, fellas, go and order whatever you want. Now, this is what I've seen. There is one particular person there. He will take the menu card. He will be memorizing the menu card, but he won't know which one to choose. There'll be a second character. He'll be holding his own menu card, but he'll be looking into the other person's menu card as if something new is there in that menu card. Okay? So there is a third character. He's totally lost. So he looks around, then he turns to his friend and he says, what are you buying? Because he doesn't know what to take. Why? I will take a red hot chili. Will you take it? A pepper I will take. Will you take it? No. But I'm confused. I don't even know which one to choose. Okay, that's the third character. The fourth character is lost as well, but he doesn't know what to do. So that time I have to come to his aid. So I used to tell him, what happened? I said, what do you want? Now this is the answer that he gives. Anything, father. See, anything, father. Now we can have butterscotch, we can have vanilla, we can have raspberry, or we can have blueberry or whatever. But there is no flavor called anything father flavor. There's no flavor. But that is what I'm talking about. People find it difficult even to identify what they want and what they don't want. So that means the very identity is confused. When you don't have a boundary, my identity is lost. And most people merge into another person's boundary. That is why we all go through a lot of emotional crisis. If there is a lack of boundary, we tend to spend time with the wrong people. We will not be able to identify who's the right person, who's the wrong person. Because I cannot say no. Because if I say no, I feel very bad because I'm worried what they will think of me. Therefore, I will not say no. But what happens? I will spoil my day, I will spoil my mood, and I spoil my own sleep. But inside, I'm cringing, I'm frustrated, but externally, I will say everything is fine. Friends, most of us go through this because I cannot say yes, I cannot say no. So I can mix up with a wrong person. If supposing that person is a dominant person, I will do everything that the person tells me to do. A lack of boundary can also lead to uncomfortable behavior. That means sometimes you may not like something, but you just cannot say, I don't like it. But because everybody takes it, I will conform to that. So it might lead me into conformity. Friends, conformity is good. We need to conform to certain norms, certain rules, certain regulations. Because norms and rules and regulations are made for uniform way of acting. Because it benefits everybody. But sometimes certain norms, if they become too rigid, it is not going to help me. But then, if I don't have a boundary, then I will do things which I don't like because I want to conform to a rule. That's what yesterday we saw. We can get into a structure, we can get into a template. So I can go to Sunday, Mass, Rosary, Novena, morning prayer, midday prayer, night prayer, then community recreation, whether I like it or not. Sometimes I go sit for recreation because I don't feel like, but I sit nevertheless. I'm feeling tired and I would like to ask my superior, can I have a late sleep? But I'm worried what they will say. So therefore I forego and I become tired. So it can lead me to a lot of confusion because I am not capable of making a decision because I lack a boundary. Now, lack of boundary can also decide in avoiding another person or isolating myself. That can happen. Now, say for example, we can always create a boundary. We can always create groups. Now, say for example, now I were to just for the sake of our argument, okay? So I'm going to see, so now on the screen I see Sister Beta. Okay, I'm going to ask Sister Beta, I'm holding something in my hand. What color do you think? Now Sister Beta says, this is black color. Okay, then I'm looking at Father Tamil Chelvam there and I'm asking, Father Tamil Chelvam, what do you see? He says, he's there. He's also seeing, but he's not saying anything. Now look at this. Sister Beta says this is black and I'm saying this is gray. Now we have a conflict, right? We already have a conflict. So Sister Beta says it's black and I'm saying it's gray. So we both go to Father Tamil Selvam. Now I'm asking Father Tamil Selvam, Sister Beta saying this is black. I'm saying this is gray. What do you say? Now this is a conflict. Now if Father Tamil Selvam says this is black, I will not like Father Tamil Selvam. If Father Tamil Selvam says it's gray, Sister Beta will not like Father Tamil Selvam. Now, who had the original problem? Sister Beta and myself had the original problem. Father Tamil Selvam was nowhere there. We pulled him inside and made him the center of the problem. Friends, this is what's the dynamics that goes in our communities most of the time. Okay? Now, let me talk about another dynamics. Okay? Sister Cheryl is there. Okay? Sister Cheryl says something and I say something. Sister Cheryl says something. I say something. We end up in a fight. Okay? We are fighting. So she screams, I scream, she goes away, I go away. Now, who's listening to whom? Nobody's listening to anybody. Then, now Sister Cheryl goes to Sister Lisa and says, Staney is a very bad person. He shouted at me. And Sister Lisa is going to say, really? And they both form a team. Now, do you think I'll be quiet? No. I'll go to Sister Caritas there. And I will say, Sister Caritas, Sister Cheryl and Sister Lisa, bad people. And we both form a team. Now see, we have formed two teams. Now, are we going to stop there? No. Now, what we are going to do? Okay. Now, Sister Lisa and Sister Cheryl, they're going to go where? That's only Galaxy M11. Sorry. Sister Teresa, okay, goes to Sister Teresa and say, okay, Sister Caritas and Staney are very bad people. They're talking bad. They talk bad about us. So Sister Teresa, Sister Lisa, and Sister Cheryl will form one team. Now we are not going to keep quiet. And Sister Caritas and myself, we are going to Sister Mary Tanuja and saying, Sister Mary Tanuja, those three people are bad people. Now friends, now we form two groups, right? Now who had the original problem? Sister Cheryl and myself had the original problem. What about Sister Lisa, Sister Caritas, and Sister Teresa, and Sister Mary Tanuja? They had nothing to do with this problem. But unfortunately, we have taken sides. We have taken sides. And why? That is what we are talking about. When there is no boundary, we will do this. We will end up having conflicts like this. We will not be able to assess. We will join teams without knowing which team is the right team. But the four of them could have said, excuse me, sister and father, it's your issue. Please deal with among yourselves. We have nothing to do. If you have a strong boundary, that's exactly how four people would have reacted. Now, friends, this can happen in communities, right? Now, we can take sides. Now, if there's a lack of boundary, we can also trend to do too much. We cannot say no. We cannot say that I am limited. I don't have the strength to continue. And I cannot make an honest assessment of my strengths and say, I'm exhausted. I need a break. So that is what will happen. Okay. So it is not very helpful when you don't have a boundary. Okay. Right. I'm going to get back to certain boundary, what happens within the boundary. Now, when you're talking about a boundary, friends, we need to also understand the boundaries are like this. It's almost like A and B. So person A and person B are there, but they are at a distance, right? They're two people with two different areas of demarcation. And if you remain like that, this is going to be creating problems. This can be it's called a rigid boundary. Okay, boundaries are like this. Now, can you see the space in between A and B? A little triangle there. That is called a no man's land. That is a common area. An area which is very common. Now, I just get back to the analogy of the dogs again. Now, if A were to be dog 1 and B were to be dog 2, dog A will not go into dog B's territory. Dog B will not go into dog A's territory because it's their boundary. But when they have street fights, they can come to the middle in a no man's land and fight. That's where dogs fight. Now, friends, no man's land is a vital area for negotiations. A no man's land is a vital area for negotiations. Now, today, in the corporate world, in the business world, they use this no man's land to the maximum. Now, say, for example, there are two companies. They're signing a deal. Now, say, for example, a corporate company like Infosys is striking a deal with another corporate company called IBM. Now, this deal will take place not in the IBM office or in the Infosys office, but it will be signed in a restaurant over lunch. It's called a business lunch. There's a concept called a business lunch in the corporate world. And what is that? Nothing but it is the no man's land. It's not in your office, not in my office, but in a restaurant, it's a common area. So this no man's land is a vital area for us for negotiations. And you know what? The no man's land, we have it in our community living. That's called a community meeting. And that is why we have a room specified called a community room. It is not your room. It is not my room. It's a community room or a common room. A terminology is also used, a common room, where everybody comes together, reads newspaper, watches TV, but they don't go to sleep there. They go back to their rooms. It's a common area. So every community has a no man's land for negotiation. All our community meetings happen not in your room or not in my room, in a common room. If you understand. So that is the place of negotiation where you and I are equals. A no man's land. Now, we also need to understand what is there within our boundary. And within our boundary, there is a physical space, there is a psychological space, there is a spiritual space, there is a gender space, and there is a mental space. Now, we need to be really, really careful about all these spheres. A physical sphere, a psychological sphere, a spiritual sphere, a gender sphere, and a mental sphere. Now, friends, most relationships are like this. I allow people to enter my boundary, but not completely. I allow people into my boundary, not completely, to an extent. And you allow me into your boundary, and that intermediary part is alone called relationship. That is what it is. The amount that I allow somebody and the amount the other person allows me, we form a relationship. You can name any relationship. It could be friendship. It could be father and daughter or father and son relationship. It could be a superior and a member of the community relationship, the provincial and another person relationship. It could be any kind of relationship. We allow people into our space, not fully, to an extent. Now, why not fully? Because we all have our own secrets, and that's a very good thing to have. We will live with them, we will die with them because it is our secrets. But how much we allow people, I have to decide. Some people I might allow a little bit. For some people, I allow somewhat. For some people, I might allow to a greater extent, but not fully. But I have to make that judgment call. And only that area can be called as relationship. Now, what happens? Sometimes I do not know where I end and where you begin because I don't know my boundary. So therefore, I fuse into another person. That is called enmeshment, and that is a very, very dangerous position to take. I merge into another person. So I become you and you become me, and I don't know what I want, I don't know what you want. It becomes so confused. Now, one of the symptoms or an indicator of enmeshment is when a person finds it difficult to say no to people. That is a very strong indication that you are in enmeshment. That means you have to really deal with that. And when you get into enmeshment, you will be emotionally hurt every time. And you might get into all kinds of complications physically, like starting from peptic ulcers, and you have obesity, cholesterol, hypertension, all that physical thing that we can, because there's a whole lot of emotions that are suppressed, not expressed. So therefore, it can create a psychosomatic condition wherein my health gets deteriorated. So friends, this is not a very helpful thing. So we need to understand, if you know our boundary, then we will be able to assess what I can do, what I cannot do, and I will be able to communicate to people. It doesn't matter who they are. It could be my friend, it could be my family, it could be my society, it could be my community, it could be my superior, it could be my provincial, it could be Pope, and it could be God. I should be able to communicate, this is my limit, and beyond which I cannot. Because an elastic band has a threshold, and we do have a threshold. Beyond which you stretch, we crash. So that's why it's very, very important to draw the line, which gives me a sense of control and really tells me who I am, the very identity. But at the same time, we need to maintain a balance that I cannot say no all the time. That means it's called rigid boundary, wherein I live my life, you live your life. Now, that is also not going to help because we are not solitary animals. We are people who live in communion. Therefore, we need to strike a balance between enmeshment and rigid boundaries. We have to strike a balance between the enmeshment and rigid boundary. Therefore, I need to be sure how much can I allow a certain person into my boundary. So I should be the one who should take the call. Okay. Now, friends, this is what I would like to share today because it's very, very important. Now, what can I do? I've sent Father Nitya a questionnaire that will indicate whether I have a strong boundary or whether I have a weak boundary, whether I have an enmeshment, or whether I have a rigid boundary. I think Father has sent it to you. I think in your free time, in your recollection, I think I would encourage you to go through it. It'll give you a kind of indicator. Now, if you feel that you need help, there are a lot of people who are more than willing to help you. Talk to your spiritual director, talk to a counselor. They'll be able to help you out to create a boundary. But there is also another way that you can also understand your boundary. Okay, simple. It is a brainstorming thing. Don't think too much. But it is an exercise I will recommend. You take your time, take a piece of paper, maybe take a few sheets of paper, start writing all the things that you like, whatever you like. That could be food, that could be color, that could be people, that could be places, that could be anything. Just exhaust your list, all that you like. Okay? Column number 2, everything that you do not like. That could be what you don't like when you eat, the color, the smell, people. Jot down their names. At least you cannot deny. Don't. It's okay. It's only for your reference. Don't have to send it across. It's only for you. At least you should know whom you don't like. It's okay not to like somebody, but it's only not okay to hate somebody. It's a choice. I can like somebody. I need not like somebody. That's perfectly okay. But I don't intend any harm to somebody. That's not morally okay. So at least you must be able to know what you don't like. Exhaust the list. Number 3, become aware of what is your anxieties here and now. What are you afraid of? I think exhaust the list, because there could be so many things I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of my profession, afraid of my health, afraid of a person, afraid of a situation, afraid of my job. It could be anything. Afraid of because my parents are getting old. I'm afraid because I might die, or I might get into that, or but COVID situation. It could be anything. Trying to exhaust, what are you scared of? What are your anxieties? And finally, column 4, try to exhaust a list of what are your goals. What do you want to become? We can't become a pilot now. If you're a pilot, congratulations. But I can become something realistically, something. But something is not what. I need to specify what I want to become. Okay? What I want to become 5 years from now, 10 years from now. How would you like? How would I like to look at my own self 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Friends, this is a worthwhile exercise to do. But we need to be a little more honest, because it's only for your reference. You can share it with your spiritual director if you may, but basically it is for your awareness. And once you exhaust it, more or less your mind will know what you really want. And then if there are fears that you need to deal with, you are scared of somebody, then you will seek help. Now, one of the conditions of religious life is we don't ask for help. We think that we can handle it on our own. But friends, we are all human, we are all weak people, because there's no other human beings other than being weak. But there are people who are more than happy or willing to help us. Seek help. If you want guidance, go for it. But before that, at least you should know why you're going to a person for guidance. What is the reason? So that is why kindly try to work this through. Tomorrow is Sunday, and I think probably you're exhausted the past 5 days, I guess. Take a break, take a long sleep, fine with that, but at least make some time. You work this through. And once you're done, if you need help, I would recommend, please ask people, go for guidance, work through your spiritual director, talk to a counselor, and there are people who would help you to understand your own boundary. Will that be okay, sisters and fathers and brothers? Okay, so I don't want to confuse you more if you're not already confused. And I would like to complete today's session with a little music, and we are done for today. Yes, ma'am.
See, there's whatever be the thing, what creates tension in our relationship with the community, because we have left the families. Most of us are, in a way, we are by ourselves. We do not know how to go about. Sometimes any guidance, anything that will help us in the long run to deal with because our families, our communities, and this is not a permanent community, it's 3 years or 6 years. But wherever we go, we have to build up things, and then we have to relate. What are some of the guidelines you can give us, which we can utilize in the prayers, meditation, as well as in relationship? Can you guide us something?
Now, Father Nitya, now the whole thing is very complicated. It's not as simple as what we think. We are all called to one particular congregation. We are attracted towards the charism of the congregation. But when we come there, now say for example, if we are 319 people as of now, it's not 319, we are 319 families here. And who are we? We are representing our families. So way we think and way we emote and way we behave, that we learned in the families. So there could be people who could be very submissive. There could be people who could be very dominative. People who can always withdraw. There's different kinds of people are coming. That is the beauty of our call. God calls people who are totally different. But then, as humans, we are representing our family and we have learned so many things. We are going to exhibit the same trait. I'm going to behave the same way how I behave because I'm a symptom of my family. So therefore, when there's a community of, say, for example, 4 people or 5 people, we have 5 families there, that there will be conflicts because 5 different ways of perceiving things or looking at issues, how they communicate, and so on. Now, say, for example, one person in their family, they don't like to go to sleep with a conflict. They like to talk it out. So they speak about it. The other person's family, they don't talk about it. So they say if you talk about it, one person gets hurt, the other person wins. So therefore, this person speaks, one person gets hurt. Actually, it's not true. It's the way that I am bound. So I'm trying to understand it in my own personal way. So it is not a simple reality, a complicated reality. That is why I chose this topic of the boundary, wherein I should be able to say, this is me, and this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do, and I'll communicate that to you as intelligently, as amicably as possible. So therefore, everybody gets to know what is expected of Staney. Okay, now say for example, now a person is there in a community and they are employed in a hospital setup. So in a hospital setup, they have to work through shifts, a morning shift, night shift. Now, the community should know. So the person says, today I have night shift. Therefore, I would like to skip morning prayer. I will do it privately. I need to sleep early. Because I feel I have the night shift, then I'll come back and sleep. I'll have breakfast and sleep. So, but then if I don't communicate what happens, the other person says, you don't come for morning prayer. That's what I'm saying. I need to communicate what I can do, what I cannot do, and I need to be able to communicate it amicably. So each one knows what to do. So we put in our resources as a comment and try to work through those resources. So that is when we evolve as individuals and as a community. So my take on this is, it is important for every individual of the community to grow, and it's also important for the community as a whole to grow in itself. Okay. So there are 2 different dynamics.
Thank you. Thank you. There's one question in my box: how to deal with arrogant and selfish persons in the community?
You ask me, really, it's very, very confusing. So there's no one single answer to this. We don't know who's arrogant. Sometimes this can happen, you know. I can perceive somebody as arrogant, but in fact, I'm the one who's arrogant. I'm only triggering a response. That could be the case. So it is not a black and white situation. Why would somebody be arrogant? We need to understand. But generally, some people have a lot of insecurity within. They tend to cover it up through aggression. And once you try it out, the other person becomes submissive. It becomes a behavioral pattern. So that's a...
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father.